Hey guys, it's Red Shadow. Welcome back to another video. And I've been kind of sitting around the last couple of days thinking about what to sit down and do the next video for. I've been wanting to do an unboxing video for the refurbished Wii U that I bought 3 years ago that I have never opened up and used, and kind of want to do so now. But I just haven't felt motivated to do that. Haven't really felt motivated to do much of anything until yesterday, and that's because yesterday was the Sony's September 2021 PlayStation 5 showcase event. Finally, they did an event of some sort this year. Figured they were going to. Everybody kept saying that if they didn't do it between June and August that it probably wasn't going to happen, but I wouldn't have been able to have imagined a year going by without them doing something more than the last thing they had done was the State of Play, I think in May, that was all about Horizon Forbidden West. But it was kind of cool for them to do something that essentially was their E3 conference. And as I watched it, I was pretty hyped for it. As a guy who's still, teetering on the fence about whether or not I'm going to get a PlayStation 5 someday, I was really intrigued and enjoyed what I saw, and there were some big announcements and there were some cool things shown, and there were some things that we've already seen, but that's the nature of the beast with these kinds of conferences. They're going to hit all the marks. But after I watched it live and then watched multiple YouTube channels that I am subscribed to do reactions to it, and eventually I started to watch other people doing reactions, which is what tends to happen every time I watch these kinds of things. I'll watch for a day, 2 days, maybe even a couple of days. I'll just consume reaction content when it comes to E3 style events, showcases, state of plays, Nintendo Directs, Xbox events, even sometimes the movie trailers, and other assorted video game things. I feel like it's a way to connect, especially now in pandemic times. It's entertainment just in general, but for those few people, personal friends who know me, who know that I kind of eat, sleep, and breathe video game stuff, it's a lot of the reason why I know stuff that I know is because I watch a shit ton of YouTube, a shit ton of coverage all across the internet, Twitter, Facebook, social media, whatnot. Like I could do more. I'm not a games journalist or anything like that, but I like to stay in touch. And so watching that event and watching multiple reactions, I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk about it. Obviously no reaction. I don't have the means by which to do it live, put myself in a little box down here in the corner and give reactions to stuff. I actually kind of enjoy sitting on my couch over here and just absorbing it for myself and then processing my thoughts for videos like this. So anyway, I just want to talk about, I'm going to talk about everything on my list here, every game and whatnot that was shown. And just give my thoughts on each thing as I go along. So the show opened up with a PlayStation commercial that was cool but kind of weird. And I saw a lot of reactors kind of just like either trying to dissect it and thinking that it was a game, and other people just being like, what the hell is this crap? Why is this a part of the show? Hey, PlayStation has done plenty of like commercials, sort of like hype commercials, showing off, I don't know, like if all of their games and characters were a community, some of these commercials are sort of like, here's the community, here's the thing, this is what we all rally around. And when the taglines come up, like for example, PlayStation 5, play has no limits, this commercial was like a chess game that was being acted out by actual people. And it was odd, sure, but it was inoffensive as far as I'm concerned. It was just kind of fun. used the Blue Monday song, the title of which is escaping me right now, but it was pretty cool. And and then it was over. So that was the thing about it. It didn't eat up, in my opinion, it didn't eat up too much time to really be something for people to get bent out of shape over. And then they rolled into Jim Ryan, President and CEO of PlayStation, brief introduction. I'm kind of on the boat with a lot of other people that Jim Ryan is probably not as cool a figurehead as, say, Sean Layden was, and Adam Boyes and some of these other guys that have come and went in the last decade. But he usually is pretty quick and is off the screen, and we move along. And then they dropped right into it with a crazy announcement, something that, once again, I preface so many of these things I want to say with, I watch a lot of podcasts, I listen to a lot of video game talking heads talking about gaming stuff. So this was a rumor that had been going around for a while, but the team at Aspyr that was responsible for porting some Star Wars games from like PS1, PS2, N64 era onto newer consoles. I even showed some of those, I think, in pickup videos, like the Jedi Academy, Jedi Outcast 2-pack. They did Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, Star Wars Republic Commando. Some of those are more recent. I didn't get Republic Commando because the squad-based stuff was a turn-off. But this was a team that was kind of put in charge of some remasters and ports of some older Star Wars games to PS4, Xbox One, Switch consoles. And now they've been given the reins of actually doing a remake of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And that was a pretty big surprise, but like I said, I had heard that this was something that might be happening, so it was cool to see it actually being a thing. Now, I didn't grab games or anything like that to show in this video, but I do own, I believe, both Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 on, I think it's the original Xbox, and I have attempted to play the first game on 360 through the backwards compatibility. And I like the game, and I get where they're going, that this was one of BioWare's earliest efforts, maybe their first. But of course, they did better over time, especially as they got to the Mass Effect series. The Old Republic, I mean, it's just a Star Wars role-playing game. Like, what could be bad about that? Well, for me, the only problem was the battle system, the combat in that game was really weird. Like, it's not necessarily JRPG level of turn-based attack, but it's odd and clunky in my opinion. And so whenever I see a remake, something like this where they're actually going to remake the game, I hold out hope that they'll modernize the combat a little bit. And I personally would just love action RPG style, something like Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy 15, something like I was thinking of something else and then I lost it. But there have been, in my opinion, some good examples more recently of kind of adapting a turn-based game into something a little bit more action and less restricted. But even if they did turn-based and they just sort of cleaned it up a little bit, I'd be happy with that too. I'd really love a chance to play those games, and it would be so much easier to play this. Now, from what we saw in the event, this being a PlayStation event, it said being remade for the PS5. It may be coming to other platforms. I think PC has already been confirmed, and a lot of people were saying that it's a timed exclusive for PS5 and that it'll probably end up on Xbox Series S and X, but it's not going to be on older consoles. You're going to see in this event, and I'll talk more about it at the end, but I've been saying it kind of left, right, and center over the last, however long it's been since the PS5 came out, that I'm leaning more towards not getting a PS5, as opposed to getting it and, you know, getting into that library of games. This event may have swung me back towards the getting the console, but we'll see. But if I want to play Knights of the Old Republic Remake, that might be my only real choice. So after that announcement and everybody kind of like reeling from what they just seen, this new game popped up on screen, or not a new game from what I've heard, like it's been in development for a while and some people did know about this, but a game called Project Eve was shown. Project Eve looked a lot like Bayonetta meets survival horror, a little bit of Nier Automata and Nier style games in it, and I believe Nier Automata is made by Platinum Games, who did Bayonetta, but this is not being developed by Platinum Games. I can't even remember the name of the developer on this. Shift Up or something. A bunch of things were listed on the screen. All I gather is that it's a Korean developer. And like I said, it was, the character model looked like she was, you know, a parody or something like that of Bayonetta. The graphics were really nice looking. A lot of dark interior areas, lots of slimy, wet aliens and monsters, and cityscapes that were apocalyptic. Things were, you know, destroyed and like tore down. Like I said, the creature designs were just wild, off the hook wild. Cool looking game. I don't know if that's a game that I would be interested in if I were to get a system and somewhere down the road that game was out and I had a PS5. I don't know that it would be something I would want to jump on, but it was still interesting. I'm a staunch believer in that it doesn't matter if a game or multiple games or the whole goddamn show doesn't have games that I would want to play. I'm not going to shit on it for not having stuff that interests me. There's multiple games on this list that don't interest me, but I'm not going to get bent out of shape. I'm not going to, you know, be a crybaby whiner on the internet because some of the games on the list weren't things that I for sure would want to sit down and play. Project Eve, like I said, probably wouldn't be something I would want to get into, but I'm glad it's out there for the people who would. And that's the way that everybody should look at it, man. It doesn't have to be, not every game has to be for you, doesn't have to be for everybody. It can be for a very niche market, it can be for a very small group or demographic. People need to get over themselves. Because, for example, the next game that was shown is not for me. It's Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It's this weird quasi D&D meets Borderlands first-person shooter, looter, like mix and mash of genres, with Tiny Tina basically being like the DM and taking you as the character on some sort of an adventure, but I assume you'll actually play out the levels as if you were really there. It's colorful, it's over the top, it's the Tiny Tina and Borderlands humor, and I gave Borderlands a try a few months back and I didn't care for it, and that's fine. I'm not upset that this game exists. Somebody out there will like it, and I'm glad it's there for people, and I'm glad that the people who worked on it had a job and got paid. Like, everything exists and it's okay for it to exist. And Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is one of those things that's perfectly fine for it to exist, and I just won't ever play that. So we'll move on to the next thing on the list. Now we get to something that did interest me, has always interested me from the moment we first saw it, when it was called Project Athia, and now it's known as Forspoken. It's a new game from Square Enix, publisher, and Luminous Productions is the developer. And they've created a game that, first and foremost, what was striking to me from the beginning was how beautiful just the game looked. The world, the character movements and traversal. I really have gotten on that traversal bandwagon this last year or two. I just love a game where your characters move in such a way that it actually feels enjoyable to just move. To not instantly want to press some sort of a button or find a node in the game that sets you on a fast travel thing. Let me just run, ride, drive, fly, whatever through the world in traversal that's smooth and fun, and Forspoken, that's what we've got. Your main character, she can run and jump and fall from great heights without taking damage. They showed in the trailer for this that she had some sort of I want to say like a grappling gun or whatever, like in a in a Dying Light or some game like that. Far Cry is more of a throw the hook. This looked more like something that shot out and grabbed onto things, and then you would pull yourself to them. I just loved it. The particle effects, the magic effects, everything, and this girl who apparently gets like sucked into some sort of a portal from New York or some sort of real life, at least based in reality, big city, where she's like bullied and pushed around and kind of feeling like an outcast, and then she gets brought into this world where, obviously tropey as hell, but she's going to be like the hero. But I was super invested, and she's got like this thing on her arm that people kept calling like the 10 rings or the rings from the new Shang-Chi movie that I haven't seen, so I don't know. But then there's like something in that speaks to her in a voiceover that's like, people said vision, and it's been a while since I've watched the MCU movies. I was thinking more like Jarvis with Iron Man, a voice that's talking to you and is helping you out. But there were just really cool elements to it. It looked like it would be a whole lot of fun, and in the end, may not even care so much about the story. Just like I said, if the game is fun to play and then there's an interesting story to back that, great. If not, whatever. It might be one of those few games where I'm just invested enough in the world, the creatures, the combat, the traversal, the effects, the graphics, to sort of be like, if the story is run-of-the-mill, whatever. But I really did like Forspoken. That would definitely be a must-buy if I did get a PS5. I'm going to jump past the next one pretty quick. It was Rainbow Six Extraction, the new Rainbow Six game. Even in the year or more that I've known that this game existed, I didn't realize that Rainbow Six Siege was so old. Like, it came out within the first year or two of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and they just really supported it with a lot of content, season content that would, evolve into whatever the next season was. But those style of games just don't do much for me. Most Tom Clancy games don't, and especially games that are like squad-based, games that are maybe more, that lean more towards the multiplayer as opposed to a single-player experience, a campaign or whatever. So Rainbow Six Extraction is just, they've decided to add like a virus, an alien invasion, something like that. A lot of people were calling it like zombie stuff, and I didn't see zombies at all in it. It was more goopy monstrosities and stuff like the Project Eve game had. And I don't know, it's cool that they spice things up a little bit as opposed to just a standard military squad-based shooter. But like I said before, it's just not for me. It's going to be for a really big audience who's going to love the hell out of it, but not for me. So move on to the next thing, which is for me super exciting to get confirmation of recent leaks that an Alan Wake remaster was on the way for PS4 and Xbox One. And I don't think it was coming to Switch, but I could be wrong. This was like just a week and a half ago, I think. It was rumored some online retailer in Europe or somewhere like that. It popped up on their website for a brief period of time. Somebody, of course, saw it because the internet's always watching. And then it kind of quietly disappeared. And then I heard some people in some of the reactions that I was watching said that, it was confirmed like the day before the showcase. I didn't see or hear anything about that. Just seeing it on the showcase itself was my first like confirmation that it was legit. And it's just a remaster. It's not a remake like the Knights of the Old Republic thing is. But I have Alan Wake for 360. I did play it back in the day when it came along. It was one of those games I really wanted to get into when it came out. For whatever reason or another, I didn't finish it, and I never did go back to it. So I'll gladly play it now on the PS4, where I imagine it may look a little better, may perform a little better. It's from Remedy, the people that did Control, which is a PS4 game I haven't played yet, but I really want to. There's apparently even some crossover between the two. Whether or not that's like canon in the universe or just DLC that they thought might be fun to throw into Control since that game came out. But anyway, yeah, I'm super excited about Alan Wake Remastered, horror game that uses like light in the darkness to weaken your enemies before you shoot them. And yeah, that'll be fun. And that's less than a month away too. And I don't think it's going to be very expensive. I'm thinking it's going to be like $30. Like, how could you not want to jump on something like that at that price? Okay, now the next thing will be a quick one, but they did show it, and I'll acknowledge it. I love Grand Theft Auto 5. It was shown yet again that it's coming to, PS5, enhanced and revised and whatever, gameplay, loading times, whatever. They didn't specify in the trailer the release of the base game, but as far as I had remembered hearing, it was sometime like in November, or maybe that was a rumor that it was November. Maybe that hasn't been confirmed. I don't remember. But they did say that GTA Online isn't hitting until March of next year. That's a surprise. That's a weird one because they were doing a promotion like where if you go on the PS1 and Xbox One versions of online, like log in every month, or maybe you don't even have to log in and just have been a part of the game at some point. They were giving free money to you in that version of the game. I went on a month or two ago and I had like $4 million and I bought one of the cool flying motorcycles, the little rocket motorcycles. GTA Online doesn't do much for me by myself. I had more fun playing with my friends back in the first 6 months that GTA Online was a thing in like 2013, 2014. If I go in there now, there's just not much for me. You're either going to get killed by randoms, you're going to get hacked or affected by people who are hacking the game, or you're just, going to find yourself logging out shortly thereafter. But GTA 5, main game, like that's in my top 10 video games of all time. So if I had a PS5, I'm not saying that I wouldn't buy the version for PS5, but not much more reason to talk about that. Next thing that was shown was Ghostwire Tokyo. That's the other Bethesda game that's exclusive to PlayStation 5. The second of the other one will be here in a couple entries down the list, so I won't bring that up until we get there. But it was like the last two contractually obligated PlayStation exclusives that Bethesda had already been working on before they were purchased by Microsoft. So, they're going to show that at these events and try to hype it up. Ghostwire Tokyo is a interesting first person. I think it's meant to be kind of horror-like, but it seems a little bit more flashy and bizarre than straight-up gritty psychological horror, like the Evil Within games, which is this team did the Evil Within games before doing this Ghostwire Tokyo. But it's odd. It's cool looking. For me, it would definitely be a must buy for PS5 if I were to get one. Next game, Guardians of the Galaxy. I have felt varying degrees of hype and meh when it comes to this game. when it was first shown off, I was really worried that it was going to be another Marvel Avengers games as a service. And then first trailer, they showed off that it was not. It was a single player game where you played as Star-Lord and kind of direct your other Guardians in battle. You can like press certain buttons that will ask them to do attacks. I think they're trying to do something like God of War did with Kratos and Atreus, however his name is pronounced. We're going to be talking more about God of War here eventually. But like you could press certain buttons and ask the boy to do attacks while you're doing your own attacks. And I think that's similar-ish to what they're going for in Guardians. The thing about it is I think this is like the third different trailer that we've seen for this. And it's just, this is the epitome of a $20 budget game or greatest hits style game where I don't see myself paying $50 to $70 for this, but $20 to maybe $30 down the road, possibly. It's attempting to do the Guardians of the Galaxy humor, and the movies were really good in my opinion. I don't know how it's going to translate to the game. I think it's a wait and see for me. Wait for this game to come out and reviews and stuff to pop out and hear what people have to say. Maybe it's possible it would be a game I wouldn't even buy for $20. Who knows? But it's there, and like I said before, somebody out there is going to enjoy the game, and that might be me somewhere down the road. Next thing on the list is the Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt. This is the Battle Royale style multiplayer game based on the Vampire the Masquerade franchise that had a couple games way back in the past, one of which I really want to play eventually. I do have it on PC, and eventually I will give it a go, but it's like buggy, and you have to download a patch, and you have to place it into the game's Steam file in just the right way to make sure the patch even works. And that's an anxiety-inducing ordeal for me. So I haven't messed with that. But then we got an announcement that there was a sequel to that game coming along, and then that's had some development issues, and it's been set back a while. It's probably a few years out. Then they announced this multiplayer, Battle Royale style game in that universe, and BR does not do anything for me. I don't care about a Battle Royale vampire game, so this one doesn't really do anything for me. Surely there'll be people who will love it. I have heard people who've played in betas or whatever loving it, and people who said that it was broken as shit and that they were really upset about it. I don't know. I don't have a horse in that race, and so therefore I'm going to move on to the next game. And this is the other Bethesda PS5 exclusive. It's Deathloop, the game that has been shown in events ad nauseum over and over and over again, and that doesn't bother me. I saw plenty of people flip their freaking shit over this game because it got yet another spot in a showcase like this, and it comes out on Tuesday, the 14th. Yeah, 14th would be Tuesday. Its release date is less than a week away from the time I'm doing this, and yet people were, having a meltdown because it was shown yet again. Hey, whatever. PlayStation has these last two Bethesda games coming to their platform. We don't know in the future whether or not we're going to see anything else from them. Are we going to see the next Elder Scrolls? Are we going to see Fallouts? Are we going to see Starfield somewhere down the road? I think some of those have already been confirmed that it's not. Starfield, I think, is never supposed to, but who knows? Never say never. That opportunity to make sales is always there. But we'll see. That's not something I want to get into a big, long diatribe over. Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo we know for sure are the last ones that we're going to get. So, of course, both Sony and Bethesda want to pimp the shit out of them while they can. And Deathloop is a game that's still confusing people as to how it plays and how it works. So I don't have a problem whatsoever with them bringing it up wherever they can. We're not going to see it anymore after this, unless it comes out and it gets like 10 tens across the board and then it gets a lot of hype, or it's horrible and it gets a lot of negative press. Who knows? But Deathloop is what it is. It's definitely a game I would check out if I had a PS. It's not a must-have for me. It would also probably be like Guardians of the Galaxy. It'd get a little cheaper. I would probably jump on it, but I'd be more eager to get it than Guardians at this point. So, the next thing on the list was an oddity. It was short, didn't show much of anything, left a lot of us wondering just what it was, like what was the game that they were showing. And then it turned out to be some sort of a musical exhibition related to Radiohead and Epic Games, coming out in November, I believe. Radiohead's fine. I don't listen to a lot of their stuff. I did try to get into some of their stuff in the 90s and the early 2000s. They definitely have some music that I thought was really good, and then they had some stuff that did nothing for me. For them to have something like this and it be with Epic Games, it made me think of how Epic Games does a lot of Fortnite concerts and events, but it's not Fortnite related as far as I can tell. So I don't know what's up with that one, but interesting. Hopefully that will do something for someone out there. But for me, it's just a let's move on to the next thing. And the next thing was a really cool looking, colorful indie game that some would even qualify as sort of like a kid's game, but I don't know. It's called Chia, and showed a girl playing a guitar and then like running around. Looked like some kind of like typical basic platforming action with kind of dumbed down looking character models, but the colors and the effects, the graphics of the game were really, really nice. And then your character can like possess animals and fly around like a bird. They showed a bird flying, and they showed her sort of pop out of the bird in midair and then possess a dog and dig, and then there was a crab and a sea turtle and stuff like that. But then there were elements that looked like Breath of the Wild. She jumped from something and popped the little, I don't know, I call it like a blanket parachute or something that lets you glide down to where you're trying to go without dying from fall damage. So maybe they're trying to pull a little Breath of the Wild into it. But it looked interesting. It's most definitely an indie game. And it's kind of cool to see indie games get a chance to shine on a bigger platform like that. Although it was, to me, interesting that it was the last thing before Sony reeled off a bunch of their big first-party exclusives. But I like the look of it. It looked interesting. I would probably play it. Definitely not a gotta get it as soon as it comes out, but a definite play at some point down the road if I get a PS5. And like I said, the last few things that we've got to talk about are all PlayStation exclusives, like actual PlayStation Studios games. And the first thing that they showed was something that has since been revealed to be called the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection. And what it is it's Uncharted 4 and Uncharted The Lost Legacy remastered for PS5 and PC. And I imagine it's going to be, I imagine there'll be a physical, like the Nathan Drake collection had 1, 2, and 3 and brought it over to the PS4. I have a feeling there'll be a physical that'll have 4 and Lost Legacy on PS5 and PC. PC may not get a physical version, but there'll be a physical for PS5, to sit on the shelf. And this is really cool because to me, Uncharted 4 is the best of the Uncharted games, and Lost Legacy was really, really cool. I just didn't care for Nadine as a character, but the little kind of like self-contained open world, it was probably the best looking Uncharted game, although 4 looked real nice. Like, that's a really cool package. So I think that's cool for them to have it. It's also another Sony first party coming to PC. So, a bunch of sky is falling people will be running around saying, why should I buy their console if it's going to be on the PC? Maybe because you don't play games on the PC and you play games on console like a lot of us do. Anyway, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves. I don't think they showed a release date for that. Then our boy Herman Holst came out and talked about all the things that most of us Sony ponies want to hear, which is about how their games and their platform is based on story-based, narrative-driven games, big spectacle-style games, your Horizons and your Uncharteds and Last of Us's and Ratchet and Clanks, God of Wars, all that kind of stuff. It was just a brief little intro to basically say, this is the final stretch in the show. We're going to be showing off some of the big first-party PlayStation Studios exclusives, and they rolled right on into the very first game, which duped a lot of us, maybe even myself at first, because the first thing that came up after PlayStation Studios was Insomniac Games, and everybody was like, what in the world are they showing? Spider-Man? Like, they did Spider-Man Miles Morales and the remastered Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man game last year around the launch of the PS5, and then they did Ratchet and Clank, put that out in June. So were they going back to Spider-Man? But no, it was just a gameplay trailer, just a game trailer with not any actual gameplay of a bar, a country music kind of sounding song on the jukebox, shit tore up, people down, a guy sitting at the bar with like a plaid shirt on and a cowboy hat with his back to the camera. Some dude stumbles up, pulls out a knife, starts menacingly walking towards the guy at the bar. You see the guy from the front, but not his face, and you see his hand, whoosh, or snicked, and out comes the adamantium claws. It's Wolverine. And even at this point, I don't really know what I was thinking. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but I may have been thinking, wow, they're doing a Wolverine game. A lot of people were like, is this Wolverine in a Spider-Man game? But nope, then comes up, Marvel Wolverine, its own video game. I've read some stuff today that says that it is sort of a shared universe in terms of the Spider-Man games and this Wolverine game. So maybe Insomniac is going to really be Sony's Marvel developer. That'd be kind of cool. If they can get access to certain properties and do those properties, I would be all about that. And Wolverine could be the stepping stone towards just a straight-up X-Men game somewhere down the road. But yeah, it was real cool. It was real short. Made a lot of reactors scream. But I enjoyed it. I was pretty psyched out. I was like, okay, cool. Now we know what they're doing next. And then it rolled into a Gran Turismo 7 trailer. Excuse me. Another game that, just because I'm not that big into racing games anymore, and especially not sim racing games, it doesn't do much for me. But they did the song at the beginning of the trailer was just like straight up organs, and it was sort of like, felt like something out of Castlevania or whatever. And I come to find out from one of the YouTube channels I was watching the review of that it was actually a song from one of the earlier Gran Turismo games. So it wasn't like they were ripping it off from something, but I think it had briefly, for some people, because of the screenshot that it opened on, like looking into the sky, seeing trees and clouds, and it kind of being black and white and moody. Some people were thinking, was that a Castlevania thing? And then you see a Porsche or something like that. That trailer was a little bit longer, I think, than maybe what it needed to be. But it's Gran Turismo. Once again, it's like everything else on the list. There were people who were eating that up, and that's what it's there for. And I don't have a problem with that. I just know that I don't have any interest in Gran Turismo. So the sooner it was over for me, the better. But I wasn't going to get mad about it. This is the stupid point I'm trying to put out there. Like, I don't get upset about shit like that like other people do. Let the people who make those games and the people who like those games have their moment. And then we moved into a moment when a cold open on a street corner and a street pole or a street post on the corner in front of like a diner, sitting there, a voice starts speaking, and a bolt of electricity hits this pole, and a bunch of people thought it was an Infamous game. Apparently there had been some rumors or whatever going around that maybe we were going to see something Infamous related, another Infamous game, a remake of the first game or the first two games or something. And a lot of people thought a city street corner lightning was Infamous related. So if that was the intent of the trailer, was to fool people, it worked for some. I had no idea what was going on. Some body hits that pole, and then the screen goes black. And then in a very, in my opinion, not a very smooth way of showing it, in a showcase with several trailers and whatnot, teasers and whatever that were done in a much smoother way than the way I'm trying to say this. Very smoothly showed you something and kind of like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. This was just like talking, lightning ripple on this street post, something hits it, screen goes black, and then you see Spider-Man's like chest. And then you know, okay, it's Spider-Man. Then it jumps into some footage of Spider-Man fighting somebody with like these interesting 4 claw things coming out from his back. I don't know if that's something from the first game. I don't know if that's something from Miles Morales, or if that's something brand new. But they showed some combat there. And then they showed Miles Morales' Spider-Man suit on the screen. And then you see that it's sort of cooking something up here. People are like, oh my gosh, it's Spider-Man. It's both Peter and Miles together. And then you see them working together to like web some guy in and slam onto the ground. And it's like, is this going to be a co-op game, or is it going to have that option? Hard to say, but I feel like it'd be a missed opportunity if you couldn't play this game with a friend and you're each one of the Spider-Men. But the big thing was the voiceover. A lot of people said that the voice sounded like Kraven the Hunter, I guess. I'm vaguely familiar with that character, but I wouldn't have been able to pick his voice out in a trailer like this. And the voice is saying stuff about wondering if you guys are going to give him a challenge or something like that. And then it goes kind of silent. You pan away from Spider-Man. They're looking down in an alleyway. It's dark, and then you hear a voice. Yes, we will, or something to that effect. And then we see Venom. Now, I love Spider-Man. I've read some of the comics. The comics are, whatever for me. I know they're where it originates from, but I'm not a big comic book nerd for, 99.99% of all the comics that are out there. I've seen, the movies. I've seen some of the animated shows. That's the kind of stuff. Like, I'm aware of who the character is. I've seen enough of it for me to be like, Spider-Man's really cool. I played the first game on the PS4. I really enjoy all that kind of stuff. I'm not, a wealth of scientific knowledge about Spider-Man and the whole rogues gallery of villains that he's been up against, beyond the few things that I have consumed in my life. But Venom and to a slightly lesser extent Carnage have always been my favorite Spider-Man villains. Green Goblins and Cravens and Doc Ock, all cool, but they don't popped my spidey sense as much as Venom and Carnage, the symbiote relationship, and all that kind of stuff. That's why, don't persecute me, but of all the Spider-Man movies that I've seen, Spider-Man 3, the third and final Tobey Maguire one, is my favorite, because Venom was in there. And I thought Venom was perfect in that movie. I thought, what's-his-face, Topher Grace, did a fine job as, I can't think of the name of the character now. I haven't watched the Venom movie with Tom Hardy in it yet, but I want to. I own it. I will watch it at some point. But I really, like I said, Spider-Man 3 to me was great. Even with emo Peter Parker in it. It was actually kind of hilarious. So having both Spider-Man, both Miles Morales, both Peter Parker, and Venom, and possibly Kraven in the voiceover, and possibly, I think somebody said Electro was going to be in it, but maybe they were thinking of something else. Maybe they were thinking about the rumors for the Spider-Man movie that's coming up. Spider-Man, and then of course at the end it said Spider-Man 2, so it's the actual full sequel, and it's coming out in 2023. We'll see if that happens. We know how things are. Trying to put dates on something like that, even a couple years ahead of time, is like a big what if. Like, is that really going to happen? But that was pretty cool. I like I said, I liked Spider-Man on PS4. I loved the Spider-Man 2 video game on PlayStation 2. That's my favorite of all the Spider-Man games, and amongst my favorite superhero games. Maybe Arkham Asylum would be one of the only things that kind of rivals that. And so Marvel Spider-Man 2, real cool. Insomniac, they're maniacs. I know they have multiple teams, so they have to be doing something like that in order to announce 2 games like that after having just released a couple of games. So good on them, and Sony, they got a steal of a deal acquiring that studio. And then the show ended with God of War Ragnarok. Now, God of War is fine. I've always been pretty meh on the whole series. I've attempted to play some of the earlier God of War games. Didn't care for that style of hack and slash action. Didn't care for the story. Didn't care for Kratos as a character. Didn't care for his plight and his issues and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, he had 3 mainline games and a couple of PSP games, and I have the collection on PS3 that has, I think, everything. And then I got the 2018 God of War, and I started to play it, and it was cool. Excuse me. Damn. Maybe that's the gods telling me I shouldn't be so harsh on it. But I got the 2018 God of War game because it looked more like games that I'm into. A little bit more open world, slower, more deliberate action, and an emphasis on the story. And I was intrigued and curious about Kratos and the boy. And I thought, well, we'll give this a shot and we'll see. It's going with Norse mythology instead of Greek mythology. Maybe the change of scenery will do something for me. Kratos looking different, being shown as a father with his son with him, as opposed to somebody who lost his family, or whatever the story was to the original games. And I got into it, and I gave it several hours, and it was that early to mid part of 2018, and there were other games that had come out or were coming out, and I'm pretty sure I remember putting God of War down to go to Far Cry 5, which I loved. So once again, don't persecute me, but I thought Far Cry 5 was a better game and more fun experience than God of War. But Ragnarok is, looks really good. Once again, it's picking at me with all those little things that appeal to me. But unless I go back and play the original game and have a better experience with it, I don't know what I'm gonna think about Ragnarok. But it's something I would more than likely still give a chance to, especially, like I said, if I play the first and finish the first and understand things, because I've had shit in that game spoiled for me. It's hard to avoid something that's been around for 3 years and gets talked about on the internet all the time. And then a sequel comes along, and you learn even more stuff about it. Things that happened in the first game. I won't say them in case somebody is actually watching this part and they don't want to be spoiled either. But yeah, Ragnarok. Perfectly fine end to this show. Like I said, doesn't do a whole lot for me, but it doesn't have to. Lots of people love the God of War games. Almost all the reactors were popping big time for it. And so I'm happy for people like that. And I'm happy for Santa Monica Studios. Happy for the people who are on that team. Lots of characters in that studio, and lots of connections to YouTube stuff that I've watched and been a part of for years. So happy for them. Happy for Sony. Good showcase. I think this definitely would have melted some brains during the E3, June event time frame. It is, like I said, a little strange to me that it waited until September. But we don't know. None of us know how much of the stuff that we saw in this show was ready to go in June. Maybe they really wanted to wait until they had this kind of a lineup to go with. And props to them. Sony does what they want to do. When they stopped E3, when they stopped the PSX event, when they pretty much relegated themselves to their own shows or the occasional things like, I want to say that they have a presence at the Tokyo Game Show, which I think is something that's coming up soon. But they just do what they want, how they want. I just don't want them to get cocky and repeat this vicious cycle that happens all the damn time. Whatever company is on top starts to do shit that pisses people off. It enables the competitor to catch up, and then it will pressure them to do better, which is fine. But I don't see why these companies don't just say, hey, we're doing good now, let's not screw up and get behind again where we have to push ourselves to top the other guys. And a lot of these companies will never ever say that they're trying to compete with Microsoft and Nintendo, that they're trying to compete with whoever else is out there. But sometimes they do act like they don't have any competition, and that's when they get cocky, that's when they get stupid, that's when they make, really dumbass moves. And I don't want to see Sony do that. I want Sony to stay competitive and do the best that they can, but I'm also cool with them sort of, doing their own thing and not trying to fall into all the trends. Just don't screw things up, Sony. That's all you really got to do. Make sure you got enough consoles out there as you can. Keep bringing the dope ass games, the absolute bangers. The kind of stuff on this is teetering me, like I said before, back over towards getting a PS5 somewhere. Not anytime soon. I don't have $500 for rent and utilities, let alone $500 for a console that's incredibly hard to get. But maybe in a couple of years I get a PS5. We'll see. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the September 2021 PlayStation 5 Showcase event. Really good show, in my opinion. Always excited to see other people get excited about game stuff. That's what I'm all about. So that was it. Those were my thoughts. If anybody watches this, if you saw the event, the showcase, what did you think about it? Let me know. Did you see anything that was really, really appealing? Did you see anything that you just thought was horrible? But just keep it cool. We don't need fanboy console war stuff. Just I love to acknowledge when any game companies and developers and whatnot are doing something that's good for themselves and for their fans. Xbox had a great show, and Nintendo had a great Direct in June. So I think it's been really, really good all around. Anyway, like I said, those are just my thoughts. Let me know anything down below if you get to this point and you're interested. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.